Genesis chapter 5, verses 6 through 21. And yes, you read that right. We're going to do a big chunk today. We're not going to do all of it. We're just going to hit the highlights of the genealogy, making our way down to Enoch, and then we'll pause and do a bit more with Enoch. And so as I mentioned at the outset of this whole series on Genesis 5, we're not going to hit everything. I'm going to jump from verse to verse, skipping a lot of the stuff in between. So let's begin. Ezesin de Seth diakosia kai pinte ete. Then verse 9. Ezesin Enos hekaton en nenekanta ete. Now verse 12. Ezesin Kainan hekaton hebdamekanta ete. And then verse 15. Ezesin Maleleel hekaton kai hexekanta pente ete. And then we'll finish here in just a minute. Well, let's begin with the main verb that you can see is repeated multiple times. Ezesin is from zao, which means to live. E on the front end, third singular ending. This is a third singular era, so-and-so lived, and that's how this genealogy is structured. We begin with Seth, which ties us back to the prior few videos. So Seth lived, and then we're going to have a bunch of numbers here, and I'm not going to necessarily put them all on the screen. These are all typically big numbers, but some single-digit numbers, and they're put together with chi typically. So diakosia, that is 200, and then pente is 5. So he lived 205, and then ete here is years. So we see that over and over again. So he lived 205 years, and he had children and so forth. That's the part that I'm skipping. Next, we have Ezesin again, Enos, or Enosh in the Hebrew. He lived for hekaton, that's 100, and then eninekanta, this is 90, so 190 years, and he also had sons and daughters and so forth. Next, we have Ezesin Kainan, and this is the pre-flood Kainan, or Kainan. There's going to be another one that we'll get to way down the road. And he lived, again, 100 hekaton, hebdamekanta, and this is going to be 70 years. Skipping down to his son, Ezesin Maleleel, and these are, by the way, these are direct offspring of each other. That's what I'm trying to trace here. He lived hekaton, so 100, kai hexekanta, that's going to be 60, and then pente, as you might imagine, is 5, so this would be 165 years. So far so good. Let's go on to the next section. So let's pick up in verse 18. Ezesin Yared hekaton, kai hexekanta duo ete. And then finally, verse 21, Ezesin Enoch hekaton kai hexekanta pinte ete. So same drill as before. Ezesin's from zao, third singular aorist, and it's Jared here. So Jared lived, and then we have 100. That's hekaton. Then hexekanta is going to be 60, and then duo is 2, so 162 years. And then lastly, Ezesin Enoch. So Enoch lived, and we have 100, kai hexekanta, 60, and then a 5 here, so 165 years. So stepping back then, here are the first 7 generations. We had Adam, we had Seth, Enos, Kainan, which in Hebrew is Kainan, Maleleel, Jared, and lastly Enoch. So why I mentioned that, first of all, it's just helpful to get a feel for how these genealogies work. But if you flip to Jude 14, in his very famous citation of First Enoch, which I've covered in written books and so forth, Jude says this: it was about these that Enoch in the 7th generation from Adam. And so, Jude knows his genealogy. It's very clear that Enoch is that 7th generation. He prophesied, and then he quotes from 1 Enoch 1. And it's quite interesting, but not enough time to cover that in this video. So just an interesting little tie back there that Jude 14 makes reference specifically to the genealogical structure. And he's done the math, knowing that the number of generations between Adam and Enoch is indeed 7. So that's Genesis 5. We've now arrived at Enoch, and so we'll pick up with some details about him in the subsequent videos. Thanks a lot.